3 to 4 operators in a 16.5 by 14.5 foot room. How do we fit in enough industries to keep them busy? And what is the best footprint to get the most out of the room whilst not blocking any of the aisles? One thing is for sure, this will be a challenging yet fun project. So join us today for a layout design video as we look at the footprint, railroad, and operations. So here we have the room at hand, 14.5 by 16.5 feet. And it's good as square, and square rooms are always a bit challenging. We have an entry door here and a door here going to a washroom, and here's a cupboard that we could perhaps use for maybe a Helix or something along those lines. Talk about that in a bit. So how do we start off? Let's try to get the longest length in the room. So we would have a benchwork down below as such. In the top, we need some kind of aisle space because we need to access that door. So then another bench work could go something like this. And then we have all this space here in the middle, and we can try to fill that up. So we take some hallway or some aisleway right here and some aisleway right there. And then we immediately see we don't have a lot of space here in the middle. We could, of course, make the aisle a bit narrower, more narrow. I wouldn't recommend that, but you could. And then you have room for some kind of peninsula here in the middle. This is not big enough to turn the train around because you would need something like that. Now, the client also wanted some around the room type of design. So if we just accommodate for all that, and then we put this on the other side as well, then we see the space in the middle is just shrinking by the minute. And the question is, what are you really going to be able to do with this space? Now, before we answer that question, we also have this area up here that we could possibly use. It also comes with its restrictions because we can fit, well, what was this? A 27-inch track in here, which is not enough for, let's say, Helix or for the track to cross itself after one loop. You're going to need far more than that, otherwise your grade is just too high. Which means that the incoming and outbound track to this area need to be separate because you need just more track to gain extra elevation. Here's a little bit the same story. So you don't have enough track in the loop, so you extend it, elongate it a bit, so then you can cross over itself. So this would be one way where you could set up a track, and then somewhere here you would have a bridge to connect back, so you do have continuous running if you want that. Another variant is you go here onto the mid peninsula. You can have a little bit of a wider radius, so then you can cross yourself there. It's going to be tight, but it's doable. Then you go up, continue up into the closet just for the sake of using it, basically, just to go up higher and to create some more elevation. But then you can go and reach a second deck. And then you would have a staging on the lower deck and a staging on the top deck. It's all feasible, but this is quite a build, so understandably, the client did not want to head in this direction. And that coincided with the idea of having a peninsula without the turnaround loop on it. So the track would basically terminate here in a large industry or staging or something along those lines. So filling in that sketch a little bit more, we get something like this. Let's go through it a bit. So here we have a large brewery on the peninsula, and on the other side of the peninsula would be staging. You can get a few shorter through tracks in here. As we're going to be operating with quite a big crew for this relatively small layout, you benefit from having as many tracks, which will be then stub-ended in here. Stub-ended, you just get more tracks in it. So you can have 4 or 5 or 3 coming in clockwise, and several 3, 4, 5 coming in counterclockwise. We can also have from the brewery here a track that leads to staging as well as an interchange track, so you can drop and collect more cars from there. And the track on the peninsula actually continues in this direction, and this aligns nicely with the client's wishes to add a grade crossing right here. So then this would definitely be some kind of separate railroad. We'll get more on how to operate that later. Now in the corner, we can add an industry. I wouldn't shove it all the way in the corner because then it's far away again, but we can definitely use a big chunk of it and perhaps have some buildings in the corner that have all the railroad track side of things a bit more forward. Add some kind of water feature here. I think that would make sense, would look beautiful in the curve. And then with the brewery there, and have some hills here to hide the track going in staging. On the other end of the layout, so we have basically two elements still to position. There'll be the yard and some industries. This being the longest track, longest straight section, we positioned it here. And as far as to the left as possible, you don't want it in the middle because then you're really not leaving any space over. And to the right, it was already getting a bit cluttered with this industry, and I wanted to keep this a bit more open. So we pushed it to the left, and then some more industries, town scene, and then the liftgate bridge. I wanted to try to keep that empty. We have a nice bridge scene on here for the likes. Now it's time to go to the final design. Some things changed. Let's just start here on the left. I initially had this siding here for the scrapyard, connect with another turnout, and then the yard lead here would be a stub end. I just felt this was getting too busy with too many turnouts. And it was a bit against the rural feel we're trying to create. So I decided just to have it at the end of the yard lead, which is possible. It is prototypical, although not very common. Now I said this is the yard lead leading into the yard, and we have so many tracks, basically 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fifth one is for maintenance of way, equipment, storage, or a spillover for the other 4 tracks. I often get clients asking about the yard, and everyone dreaming about a through yard because they read in the books that it's better, etc., etc. This comes up quite often. Actually, I just had a 2-hour chat session with someone else, and we're talking about the yards as well for quite a bit, like how much yard do you need? But for a layout of this size, I mean, this is actually quite a big yard already. You could also just have 2 tracks and probably get away with that. I mean, it is dense. We do have a lot of people operating. We have a large staging, so that's why we opted for more tracks and a 5th one for some extra spillover as well. Don't forget, we also have this is a siding, passing siding, and to do runarounds that goes all the way here. So it'll be a siding with this track and with that track. So that could also technically be used to store cars if it really gets busy. And more on yards and the function of each track, check my guide I wrote on yards and yard designs to learn more about that. Now, the client also wanted an engine facility, so that would be this whole section here with 2 tracks. This I have found is the most space efficient way to get an engine facility on a layout. I have it at home as well, and it just works really well. Noted that we don't really need this facility. We're modeling steam, so we have a water tower there, a little coal, sand pits structure there, and it's transition era, so we have here the fueling facility for the diesel trains. But if you're not modeling steam, you don't really need a large engine facility or any facility at all, to be honest. Even with steam, you could get away without these separate tracks. But for diesel in particular, the engines could also just sit on this track right here, and then a truck would come rolling by to fuel the cars, or the locomotive, sorry, from here. So you don't actually need any dedicated tracks. But I understand it's nice, you can see the engines, and it gives some extra operation. So it is nice. Here's the cooling tower. Yeah, sorry. I was confused. This was the sand operations, and that's the water, and then that's the cooling tower. Now, one industry the client really wanted is a glass manufacturing facility. I don't see that often, so that's great fun to plop that in here. Now, again, it is a more transition era, so we have here a track for fuel, for coal, to fuel the facility. Looking up glass facilities, there's always a lot of broken glass alongside in piles, so that's really a nice feature to add. We've got tanks here for to offload covered hoppers, here for the loading bay, and then that would be that industry. Fun little industry to switch off of this siding right here, those 2 tracks right there. If you want to learn more about different industries you can have on the layout, check my my industry guide series that I wrote. Check the links down below. You can purchase them there. Now, continuing on the main line counterclockwise, we go into staging. That's this whole bit right there. We have 5 tracks in the counterclockwise direction and 3 tracks in the clockwise direction. Should be plenty some. And then there's also this track right here that is an interchange track that connects to this brewery area that we will talk about in a bit. And there is, of course, also a through track. Just here to have continuous running when you feel like it. Now, liftgate is kept fairly simple. A little bit of track on here. Got a river scene, got a bridge and a river scene, always nice. And then here in the corner, we added a small village. Looking at the scenery, this whole section from up here all the way to about here could be considered one city slash village. So we have the parallel roads right here. After the track, they go in their own direction. We have the, let's say, wider, bigger city scene here with the commercial buildings with residents on top. Just your standard Walter kits. And then here we have a team track the client really wanted that is accessible through the buildings. And then here with a crane, you can load and unload almost anything from there. Between the two parallel roads is the scrapyard. We talked about that. Here we have a lumber yard, loading, transloading facility. Nothing's really, no lumber is being cut there. It's just loaded, comes from abroad, and it can go to rail, or the other way around, goes from rail and then offloaded, or unloaded. Then we come to a bit more of the intricate part, and that is the brewery that starts around about here and basically engulfs the entire peninsula. That was the purpose, that was the goal, so we reached that. We have here on this track, we have icing platform. Here we have a shipping platform right there. Here you have another track, could be used as well as shipping, perhaps receivables, all types of hops, goods, special grains, because here's also dry bulk receiving on this track right there. This could be more receivables right there. You can also dedicate this building a structure for return kegs as well. They're going to be washed and processed and reused. Again, we need fuel. So here we have, this is the spur for the oil, little building there. And we're tying this whole facility together. So we have a bridge here to really announce, let's say, the end of the scene. So yes, the track does continue off layout, but for all intents and purposes for this layout, basically stops where the bridge is, or just after it. The brewery connects to the wider world, so we have more roads, road down below. So this expressway is up top, there's roads down below, little shacks, little shanties, we have power lines across the facility as well. The trucks here, because this is the shipping building, remember, they also go somewhere off layout. So this would be a really nice scene to have all these loading bays, the hustle and bustle of that side of the business. Here we have the main office to the brewery for the clerks, the admin, the red tape. Good fun. How would you switch this? I think you would switch it in reverse. So you would do the runaround here on the siding. So you have the engine, and then you have your cars, and you would push them in. And then because you push them in, you can easily switch that track, this track, these two tracks, the engine track, basically all the tracks. So you don't really need to do a runaround, and you can also depart again, engine first. So that would be an easy, quick and easy departure. But when would you use this runaround track or the siding? Well, to switch the interchange track right here. One limit to the interchange track is the length from this turnout right here all the way to the end of the layout, because that is the total length of train you can be or will be able to switch or collect and dump at the interchange track right there. Before we go to how to operate this, let's just look a little bit at the areas and why the layout has been set up like this. So we have obviously the yard, so someone is going to be in this larger area to switch the yard. Someone might be busy here for a while to get these cars switched. The yard, obviously, staging is obviously also an area where someone can be busy and standing right there. Now, a big part of the peninsula and why it's separated is because we can make use of all this space. Someone can be here and focus just fully on the peninsula. This is his or her area. And then we have space left over here for the interchange, which does have to be shared with the person for the peninsula and also this industry right there. There's plenty of space here as well for two people to operate. So that's the general layout of the area. What I like about these layouts, it doesn't look like there's a lot of track. Obviously, for some people that are super prototypical, there is a lot of track. But compared to other layouts out there, I think we did quite well with the amount of track that's here. and the perception of the amount of track that's here. Because if you go to the line diagram, there is a lot of track. There really is a lot of track. And everything centers around the yard and the brewery, because these are just the largest industries on the layout. I wanted to come back to this separate line right here. Let's just go to this picture for that. So the other railroad comes in here and then continues. I can draw that in nicely here off layout. So how would you actually operate that? And there's several ways you can do it, but I think the most obvious one would be to have trackage rights. So our railroad has the right to go onto this said section of track, and this whole area basically, to spot the brewery and only that, and then to go back to our own little railroad. You could also have rights to switch the interchange, but you can also flip that around and say, well, the other railroad has rights to get the cars from the interchange and to come onto our railroad here and to spot them solely on this track right there. That is also a fun way to operate, because that means that these cars will actually block this siding and someone from the yard, from our railroad, has to go and collect them before the entire operation session becomes one big soup. Go back to the line diagram. I think we've been through most of it. It's not much to add really. I've discussed in other videos like how you can originate and terminate trains from the yard to either run clockwise or counterclockwise. And we also have trains coming in from staging to either go clockwise or counterclockwise, and they can switch. So a lot of industries, a lot of options, a lot to do in quite a compact space. And that's the layout design for today. Thank you very much.